Yo, what's good with y'all, man? Today I'm back again with another video. Now this is I'm reacting to the horror shorts again. You know what I'm saying? I'm reacting to the same one, but this is part two. Cause this is part two basically. This is part two basically because I'm not because I didn't finish the other ones. But I know you ready. I'm ready. Let's get into it.
I work in middle management for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I can't say which one due to the NDA I had signed. It would compromise my identity. I'll be using fake names for everyone I'm about to mention. You'll understand what I mean. I used to work in a small, typical office setting with a handful of other people on a specific project for the company's greater interests. But every once in a while, even to this day, we were reminded of just how powerful our boss at the top of the ladder really is. We work with a lot of trade secrets, and all of that information is sensitive. What I can say is that we weren't able to maintain our usual level of productivity over Zoom. A time came when we had to permanently switch to working from home, which meant we couldn't go to the bland old office anymore. Our team manager, Mr. Burns, had worked at the company for decades. The project we were working on was probably going to be his last one before retiring. The problem was he was a dinosaur with computers. We wasted a lot of time during all of our meetings just teaching him how to operate Zoom. Simple things like unmuting his microphone or figuring out how to add people to the call. We eventually realized that a couple of weeks had gone by without getting any work done. I got a little frustrated and sent an email to HR requesting some IT training for Mr. Burns. I tried to make it come across as respectful. I really did. But I guess the executives had a different interpretation. Just a few days later, at our next meeting, things went completely sideways. Our old manager was nowhere to be seen. He'd been replaced by some corporate shill with a face shot full of Botox.
Good evening, faithful employees. Kelly from HR here. We noticed that this team has had a dip performance recently. We've decided to restructure the group and offer incentives where necessary. I'll be acting as the interim manager until we find a replacement for old Mr. Burns.
Honestly, the only thing shocking to us about Mr. Burns being replaced was just how suddenly they kicked him out. I felt bad for putting in a negative remark about him, but for that moment I was focused on looking good in front of my superior. That Kelly creature didn't say a word after she introduced herself, just watched and listened to us. After the meeting, I sat in front of my laptop for a while, just confused and worried for some reason. I zoned out and didn't really do much work for the rest of the day. It was Friday after all, and I wanted to relax for the night. Unfortunately, I wouldn't get the chance. I was watching TV in my living room when I got a text on my phone. It was from the company HR number. It read, "Answer your front door." What? My heart jumped a little, but I grumbled it off. Start working from home, and you never get time off. When I answered the door, a 6'8" bodybuilder in all-black company attire stood in front of me with his arms crossed. "Good evening." "Hello, John. I'm Kyle from HR. May I come in for a moment? These hours are outside of my contract. Would you kindly invite your associate inside to discuss a major promotion?" Just from the way he said it, I figured I shouldn't say no. "Sure, get in. Just don't break my kneecaps, okay?" "That won't be necessary, John. If you're interested in the management position, all you need to do is go through our Zoom orientation." "Really? Then why'd you come to my house to tell me that?" "The meeting contains, sensitive information. You don't got clearance yet." I was very quickly starting to realize what I'd just gotten myself roped into. I felt like I'd just been forcefully initiated into the mob. Well, no sudden movements now. "Okay, sure, let's do it." The lumbering thug followed me to my computer and gave me a Zoom code. He stood just inches behind my chair, towering over me as I sat at my desk. When I joined the meeting, there was only one other member. Their video was on. The camera pointed at a man tied to a chair beneath a harsh spotlight. "Wait a minute, is that Mr. Burns?" "HR appreciates your initiative in adapting to this new working environment. The old blood just couldn't keep up. So as an incentive, you get to see what happens to those who threaten this company's bottom line. We appreciate the tip you gave us. I was shaken up. What was about to happen? I stared at the live video call as I saw two men approach Mr. Burns. They began by beating his hands with clubs, then they kicked over his chair. They wrapped his face in a rag and started waterboarding him. Why are you doing this? He was just a little slow with computers. I never meant for all this to happen. His computer was full of viruses. He leaked trade secrets everywhere. We can't have such an incompetent fool around. He deserves this. I was in shock. This really was like the Mafia. I wasn't allowed to look away from the meeting. They'd ceased with the waterboarding and moved on to jumper cables. Congratulations on moving higher up in the company, John. I still work for that company, in Mr. Burns' old position. I've seen a few of my co-workers disappear from the company in the last few years. I've thought about quitting many times, but it seems like every time the idea takes hold in my head, I get a visitor from HR. Take this as a warning to support your local small businesses, because even though I'm posting the story anonymously, there's a good chance I won't have enough functional fingers to type out a follow-up. When I was a freshman in college, my school had moved all of their classes online. I did all of my lectures on Zoom. Everyone complained about it, but I honestly didn't mind. I got to keep living at home for another year and save money on transportation and dorm expenses. There was only one class in my first semester that gave me any trouble: geography. I thought it would be an easy A, but for some reason, I just did terrible on every test. It was an evening class at 8 p.m., so I guess I was usually lacking in focus for most of it. It was always the last class I had before I snuck out of the house to hang out with my friends from the fraternity I'd recently joined. My parents didn't approve of that decision, so I had to keep things low-key, as I would leave through my window after they went to sleep. Rolling through the night with my friends made up my whole college experience at that point, but it didn't help my grades. So it seemed like a good thing when the geography professor, Mr. Higgins, offered some extra credit towards the end of the semester. Before we begin today's lecture, I want to let everyone know about something. I know that several of you are having some bad luck with my tests, so I decided to give everyone a chance at some extra credit before the final. Just stick around after the lectures and answer some questions correctly, and you'll be rewarded. Because I didn't want to get a bad grade in one of my first college classes, I decided to go for it, even though it meant I'd have to keep studying until 9 or 10 p.m. After the lecture was over, I realized that quite a few other students were taking the opportunity. The problem was, the questions were ridiculous. In what postal code would I reside if I moved to Colorado 50 kilometers due west of Denver? You have 60 seconds to answer. What? How am I supposed to answer that? It was like he intentionally made it next to impossible to answer correctly and in time. Oh, looks like nobody got that one. See you after the next lecture. Of course, in college, they don't make it easy to get extra credit. But I thought that the harder it was to achieve, the more it would be worth. With that in mind, I kept going to the after-lecture sessions trying for those extra points. Every time, fewer and fewer kids showed up, and every time, Professor Higgins came up with another impossible question. I never got a chance to answer any of them, but I was honestly hoping to get pity points for being the only one who continued to attend the whole time. One night, just before the final, I was the only one left. Well, Ryan, it looks like it's just you and me for this one. You'll have to excuse my absence from the video. I, don't have access to my webcam at the moment. That's okay, Professor Higgins. It won't stop me from getting extra credit. Yes. You know, Ryan, since you've been so persistent, I think I'll give you an easy one this time. Thank you, Professor. This was my chance. I thought I might just get a good grade in the class after all. What would I find if I went south down Main Street from the university, took a right on Pine Avenue, turned left onto Maple Court, then went down to the cul-de-sac and up to the side of a house with the red door. A chill ran down my spine. I left the Zoom call and immediately closed my laptop. I tried to calm my breathing, but it wasn't working. Those were directions to my house. How could he know that? Why would he ask me that? Just then, all the lights in my house went out, followed by the distinct total silence of a power outage. No blowing of the heater, no distant hum from the fridge, nothing but absolute quiet. I stood from my desk and started to walk out of my room. I was hoping I could just go flip the circuit breakers in the laundry room and everything would turn back on. But when I got to my bedroom door, I heard a knock from somewhere else. Ryan, you didn't answer my question. I looked back to my window just in time to see him. The answer is the window you forgot to lock. I was in complete shock. It felt like I couldn't move, but I quickly snapped out of it. Mr. Higgins had got the crown of his head through the window. I dove across my room and to my window, quickly shoving him back onto the roof. My phone wasn't in reach, so I yelled, "Leave me alone or I'll call the cops! Somebody help me, please!" Just then, my dad ran into my room with the bat as he darted towards our scuffle. Mr. Higgins' body was almost completely inside of my room just as my dad swung the bat into his head. Ah! My head! Get the hell out of my house! My dad swings the bat again and bashes it right across his face. A few teeth fly out of his mouth and his body collapses to the ground. He was out cold. We immediately called the cops and Mr. Higgins was arrested for breaking and entering. I don't know about anyone else, but I have to say my first year was pretty brutal. They say learning from home is supposed to be safer than in-person learning, but I digress.
Bro, that was crazy. That was crazy, bro. Man, them last two was really crazy, bro. Stay tuned for the next video. I'm out. Peace.